So, how did one of the most overlooked, most underestimated figures of the entire 20th century manage to seize absolute control of the Soviet Union? We're going to break down the ruthless and frankly brilliant strategy behind Joseph Stalin's incredible rise to power.
He was famously called a gray blur by one of his contemporaries. He was just seen as this dull, uninteresting bureaucrat, a backroom guy who had absolutely none of the charisma or flair of his more famous revolutionary buddies.
And yet, in just 5 years, think about that, only 5 years after Vladimir Lenin died, this so-called gray blur completely outmaneuvered every single one of his powerful rivals. So how on earth did he do it? How did he go from being this background player to the undisputed dictator of a rising superpower? Well, let me tell you, it was no accident. It was an absolute masterclass in how to take power.
All right, so let's set the scene. It's 1924. Lenin is dead, and the future of the Soviet Union, it's completely up for grabs. There's no clear successor, which you can imagine kicks off this brutal, high-stakes power struggle among the top dogs of the Bolshevik Party.
Now, this scorecard really paints the picture. You've got Leon Trotsky, right? The famous war hero, the guy with the Red Army in his back pocket, but he's arrogant, and it rubs people the wrong way. Then you've got Ziniev and Kamenev, the old Bolsheviks, running huge cities, but they're notoriously indecisive. Bukharin is the popular one, the darling of the party, but he doesn't really have a solid crew behind him. And then there's Stalin. His power base, the boring party bureaucracy, but his key strength and his rival's fatal flaw are two sides of the same coin. He's ruthless, and everyone, I mean everyone, underestimated him.
And really, it all boils down to this matchup. On one side, you have Leon Trotsky. He's the total package, the obvious heir, a revolutionary genius, an incredible speaker, the commander who won the Civil War. And on the other side, Joseph Stalin, the quiet bureaucrat. But behind that quiet exterior was a guy who'd robbed banks for the party, a master of backroom deals, a man who was way more dangerous than anyone gave him credit for. So, with the board set, how does this supposed moderate start taking out his rivals? Well, let's look at his first move, a brilliant play that went right after his biggest threat, Trotsky. Stalin didn't just react to things. He had a plan, a playbook. Step 1, he teams up with Zinoviev and Kamenev, who were also terrified of Trotsky's power, and they form a little alliance called a triumvirate. Step 2, they use this alliance to just hammer Trotsky, attacking his reputation, stripping him of his powerful posts. But step 3, and this is the genius part, when his new allies want to kick Trotsky out of the party for good, Stalin says, whoa, let's not go that far. He positions himself as the calm, reasonable one, making them look like the hot-headed extremists. And this quote just nails it. All of them, Zinoviev, Kamenev, even the brilliant Trotsky, they all thought Stalin was just a useful tool, someone they could control and then discard. They had no idea they were just pawns in his much bigger game. And that one mistake would cost them everything. Okay, so with Trotsky pushed to the sidelines, the fight isn't over, not by a long shot. Now it shifts from pure political maneuvering to a battle of ideas. Stalin had to prove that he, not anyone else, was the true heir to Lenin's legacy. And this is where Stalin just played his hand perfectly. Trotsky was still pushing his idea of permanent revolution, this belief that the Soviet Union couldn't survive unless communism spread all over the world. But here's the thing. After a decade of war, people were exhausted. Nobody wanted more conflict. Stalin comes along with a much more appealing offer: socialism in one country. The message was simple, pragmatic, and patriotic. Let's forget the world for a bit and focus on building our own strong, powerful nation. It was exactly what people wanted to hear. Stalin also pulled off a masterclass in public relations. He completely controlled the narrative around Lenin's death. He made sure he was a chief pallbearer at the massive state funeral, looking like the chief mourner. He had Lenin's body embalmed and put on display, turning him into a saint. And all the while, Trotsky was conveniently absent, sick and recovering by the sea. Stalin didn't just succeed Lenin, he created a Lenin cult and made himself its high priest. And now we get to the endgame. After using his allies on the right to crush his enemies on the left, Stalin makes this absolutely shocking pivot. He basically steals the policies of the people he just defeated, using a national crisis to eliminate his very last rival, Bukharin. This shocking move was called the Great Turn. It was a complete 180, abandoning Lenin's more market-friendly New Economic Policy, or NEP, and replacing it with a brutal top-down command economy. But you have to understand, this wasn't just about spreadsheets and 5-year plans. It was a political weapon.
So look how this perfect storm came together for him. 1, there was a real economic crisis. The NIP wasn't working and cities were facing grain shortages. 2, there was this very real paranoia that the capitalist West was going to invade, so they had to industrialize at lightning speed. And 3, this gave Stalin the perfect political opening. Bukharin was the NEP's biggest cheerleader. By declaring the policy a failure, Stalin could paint Bukharin as an enemy of the state and get rid of him for good.
And just listen to how Stalin sold this. This quote is amazing. He's not talking about economic theory. He's talking about survival. It's life or death. He's basically saying, we can do it my way or our country will be destroyed. It was a terrifyingly effective argument that rallied the party right behind him.
So by 1929, that's it. The game is over. Stalin is the undisputed boss. But the Soviet Union he was now in charge of was a profoundly different country than the one Lenin had led. Let's just look at how much had changed.
Think about it. Under Lenin, the leadership was, at least in theory, more collective. He was first among equals. Stalin? He built this massive, pervasive cult of personality around himself. And while Lenin certainly used terror, it was mostly aimed at external enemies. Stalin turned that terror inward against the party itself. And finally, Lenin's vision was always global. Stalin's was intensely, fiercely nationalistic. He didn't just win a power struggle, he completely transformed what Soviet power even meant.
Which leaves us with this final question. Was Stalin's rise just a fluke, a result of his rivals making a bunch of dumb mistakes? Or was it something more? Was it the work of a uniquely ruthless and strategic political operator who knew exactly how to combine ambition, policy, and pure brutality to get exactly what he wanted? In the end, the gray blur proved to be the most dangerous player on the board.